Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Due to COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live stream video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variances and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number will also be posted on the screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and when you do call in, staff will ask you for your name and item number that you wish to address, and your telephone number. Then further instructions will be provided for you to call back and join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls the interested parties, the Secretary-Treasurer will unmute you when it is your time to speak. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of their application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for a presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must state their name and address for the record, and 5 minutes will be provided for each person to make their presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes, again, will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made and from interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in the staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity for you to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussions. Any person desiring a notice of the decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary-Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the local planning appeal tribunal for giving any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent to the applicant and agent and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the last day to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then, within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in the hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and any other people participating in electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. So tonight we do not have any regrets. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interests? Okay, I see none. Thank you. At this time, Ms. Secretary-Treasurer, I'll be taking requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. If anyone in the panel who is in attendance and would like to defer or withdraw an application, please raise your hand and the Secretary-Treasurer will invite you to speak. Okay. Have we received any requests? Is there anyone standing by? Ms. McRae?
This is going to... Two people had their hands up that I've moved into the panelist. I moved in Assad and Ziba Ansari, and Babak Naghash had their hands up, and they've been promoted to panelists.
Okay, let me take Mr. Assad and Ziba Ansari. I'll hear you first. If you'd like to unmute yourself so you can speak, and just make sure that your camera is on so we can see you as well.
Okay, so we are unmuted now?
Yes, very well.
Okay, and the video on as well. Okay, so there we are. Sorry.
Hi, do you need for us to initiate it? Because our engineer was doing a presentation.
I'm at this point in time, I'm taking deferrals or requests for deferral or request for withdrawal of applications.
Oh, no.
Are you seeking to defer or withdraw your application?
We are not.
No.
Apologies.
No, sorry. We are here to present our case. No.
Okay, you will be called at the time that your case comes in order. What is your case number? Okay, you are case number 5.
Sorry, Sherry.
You still have a bit to wait.
I've moved them back to attendees when they're choosing not to defer. So we just have Mr. Naghash looking for a deferral, I believe.
Okay, Mr. Naghash, if you'd be kind enough to unmute yourself and put your video on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Good evening. My name is Babak Naghash. In respect to application CAV A-012-2021, property address 540 Patricia Drive.
Okay, very well, sir.
So we received the planning comments on this application on February 12th. So we would like to work with the planning department and revisit the design and represent the president's application deferred at a later date.
Okay, very well. Mr. Naghash, one of the things that I'd like you to pay attention to once we've made a decision to defer this application is to be aware that your sign, while I see it clearly on your fence post next to the garage and on the other side of the fence, it really should be similarly placed as a for sale sign on your property close to the curb so that it's visible to any passers-by that can read it without trespassing on the property.
Okay.
So you will be provided with a new sign because you're going to be assigned a different date and application. So you will be provided with a different sign. So just bear that in mind for the next time you come before us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, committee members, I'm in your hands. Mr. Naghash would like to work with planning staff. I welcome that opportunity. Is everyone in favor of a deferral? All those in favor? Okay, Mr. Naghash, your application has been deferred. You will see the Secretary Treasurer and she will appoint you a different date at that time.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Sherry, can you just hold on for 2 seconds? I'll just be a moment.
Yeah, no problem. If there's anyone else who is seeking a deferral, please signal, raise your hand so that the Secretary Treasurer can clearly identify you and bring you forth to speak as a panelist. Again, at this point in time, we are taking requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications.
Okay, thank you for your patience. We should be ready to move on to the next application.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to defer an application or withdraw an application? Ms. McCrae, is there anyone else?
I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. I forgot to address the public for application CAV 012 of 2021 for 540 Patricia Drive. I note here that we do have a letter of opposition from Mr. Pierre Bouliot, and I have a request for attendance for a Jonathan Bouliot and an Andrea Coronin. Are those members present at this present time, Ms. McCrae?
Yes, I see Mr. Bulot is present at this time. Although, yes, I see that Mr. Bulot is present.
Can you promote them as panelists so I can see them and address them?
Absolutely. He should be in the meeting now.
Hello, Mr.
Madam Chair.
Bolo. Can you please put your camera on? And who else is here for this application? Ms. McCrae, is there anyone else?
I think I'm the only one.
Not at this time.
Okay, I see you now. I appreciate your attendance, sir. We've accepted the applicant's request to defer. We do have a letter of opposition on hand. Hopefully, with the applicant going back to speak to town staff and making amendments to their application, they may address some of your concerns. So you will get another notice, and you will be able to see the changes that they've made to the application. And at that time, you can choose whether you'd like to attend or not, based on whether they've addressed your concerns. Okay, well, we have your comments on record, and so does the applicant and their agent.
Perfect, excellent.
Okay, so if they don't get to that matter, which I suspect that they will, you will be able to raise it again when they come back with the application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time, and we appreciate your submission.
Madam Chair, there's also a
Good night.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
There's also a Mr. Abdul Sheikh here as well, wanting to talk to that item.
Okay, very well. I hope he's heard my comments to Mr. Boileau, but I'm happy to repeat them again. If he would be kind enough to unmute himself.
Sorry, yeah.
Mr. Abdul Sheikh? No, that's fine, Mr. Boileau. There's someone else who. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Mr. Abdul Sheikh? You are muted, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Sheikh.
Very good. You're here to address application CAV 012 of 2021 at 540
Yes.
Patricia Drive, correct?
Yes.
Did you hear my comments to the other neighbor, Mr. Boileau, with respect to the deferral? Do you need any further clarification? Once again, at the time that you will be served with the new notice, you will see the new application and any changes that they've made, and hopefully at that time, they will have addressed all your concerns. If not, we invite you to come back and speak to the matter at that time.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Thank you kindly, sir. Have a good night. Okay. Sorry, Ms. McCrae, any further requests for deferrals?
I see none at this time.
Okay, very well. With that said, we can move to the first application of the night, which is application CAB 011 of 2021 at 330 Tudor Avenue. Excuse me. Again, the application is CAV 011 of 2021 at 330 Tudor Avenue. If you are watching the live stream page at oakville.ca, we ask you to call to 905-815-6095, and staff is standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. I have the agent David Carruthers here for this application for a one-story rear addition. Good evening. Go ahead, Mr. Carruthers.
Good evening, committee. Thank you for having us. We're here today to ask for a minor variance of 4.8% to allow the homeowners to have a covered porch off the back of their house. There's the way that the house is situated, there's no relief for sun in the summer months. And what this one-story porch addition will allow them to have that relief and enjoy sitting outside in the backyard. We've designed it so it's just a one-story covered porch, and we've read staff comments. We see that they're in support, and I'm open for any questions that you may have regarding our application.
Okay. Thank you for your submission. Members, are there any questions of Mr. Carruthers at this time? I see none. Ms. McCrae, has anyone called in for this application? We have no letters of opposition or support for that matter.
I don't see any at this time.
Okay. Very well. If there are no questions of Mr. Carruthers and you're satisfied with the planning staff's recommended conditions, we are ready to take the matter into committee.
Okay.
Okay, who would like to move a motion? Start us off. Go ahead, Ms. Murray. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, of which I note the staff is in support of, having also taken into account the presentation by Mr. Carruthers this evening, I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all four tests under the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for variance, subject to the following conditions: that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated number 2 or on January 12th, 20, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Thank you.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. Your application has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you, you too.
All right. So application CAV 013 of 2021 at 1222 Montclair Drive. That is application CAV 013 of 2021 at 1222 at Montclair Drive. If you are watching the live stream page at oakville.ca, please call 905-815-6095 to speak to this application. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Who do I have here for this application, Ms. McCrae?
You have Mr. Paul.
Okay, very well. Good evening, Mr. Paul.
Good evening, Madam Chair. And good evening, members of the committee. Good evening. Okay. Should I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay. I was just not too sure if I have the. Okay. So thank you so very much. I'm here tonight to present minors variance for 1222 Montclair Drive in Oakville. So next page. So we've been here before. I think one of the things I hope tonight we get the favor of the committee to approve this, because it's really minor. Based on the last application that was not approved, we've revised the size and of the addition, and now we've complied with the front yard setback. But one of the few things we're just doing this time is that the garage we're increasing the garage size, and what we can grandfather the existing garage into what the setback that we have. So we need to apply for this minor variance. So if you go by the zoning bylaw today, we are enabled to have 45 square meters, but right now we're adding to the tune of 38 square meters. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's one of the reasons why we're coming in for this application. Next page. So this just shows you a little bit of the existing and proposed, and pretty much the same. So if you look at the bottom there, the setback is still from the existing and the future. The proposal is the same. The driveway is the same. The only thing that is changing is the garage size. Next. So, I mean, we have the support of the planning department on this one, and we just hope we get the approval of the committee as well to move forward on this. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Are there any questions of Mr. Paul at this time, committee members? Okay, I see none. Is there anyone who is here to speak to this application, Ms. McCrae?
I see no one at this time.
Okay. Mr. Paul, we do note that the signage for your application was placed this time at the edge of your staircase. Is there a reason that you didn't place it correctly on the lawn as it was meant to be, like you did last time?
So it was a weather condition. So every time I put it out there, the wind either blows it away, then I go pick up, it can put it back. So I did severally, and at the time I looked at it, what I had broken. So I could just put it where I could put it right now. Today the snow was crazy. I couldn't even try to move it around again. And okay, I will leave it there, then I can go back and fix it again. So I was able to get something to do it this evening, but I'll fix it, put it back where it should be again. I mean, it's just the weather condition.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Just be aware that while we understand that the conditions are as such, it really does serve to give notice to the public past the mail out that goes to the diameter that is involved with giving notice. So if you do come before us again, just pay attention to that, please, okay? In the future, I don't think the committee will be as lenient with this matter.
Thank you. That's well noted.
Okay, are there, since there are no questions of Mr. Paul at this time, and no one has called in to speak to this application, we have no letters of opposition or support on record, we are ready to take the matter into committee, and we note the comments and conditions that staff have recommended. Mr. Talowski, I see your hand go up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm satisfied this application meets the four tests of the Planning Act. This is really an existing situation, and there remains enough room to park vehicles in the garage and the driveway. So, Madam Chair, I would move that the application be approved as applied for. But I would note that there is no opposition, and I would make that approval subject to the addition proceeding in general accordance with the site plan and elevations dated January 19th, 21, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, the next application is CAV 014 of 2021 at 2487 High Mount Crescent. Again, the application is CAV 014 of 2020 at 2487 High Mount Crescent. If you are watching the live stream page at oakville.ca, and you'd like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. I have Mr. Mark Marino listed as the agent to speak to this application. Ms. McRae, just let me know when you're ready to move forward.
Okay, and also just to let you know, the homeowner, Mr. Kevin Archie Christopher, is also as a panelist.
Okay.
So, and thank you. We're ready to go.
Okay. Mr. Christopher, are you seeking to address the committee, or you're just in attendance and you're going to let Mr. Marino speak?
Hello? Yes,
Hello, yes.
Sorry, my intention is to let Mark speak. I'm just here to witness and answer any questions the committee might have. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, sir. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Marino.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Mark, and committee members. My name is Mark Marino. I'm representing the property owners. Madam Chair, I take it that you can hear me fine?
Yes, we can hear you fine. I'd like you to put your camera on, please.
I really don't know how to do that.
If you look at your top corner, you can start video that way. Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we see you now.
Okay, yes, okay. So let me just, yeah, Madam Chairman, I am representing the property owner. Madam Chairman, we before the committee today seek relief from the zoning bylaw to reconstruct an existing rear yard patio along with a front yard second floor addition over an existing living room to the subject property. Although it's my understanding that the second floor addition over the living room does not require any minor variances. We are seeking the following variances for the rear yard balcony. The maximum fireplace encroachment is 0.6 meters, and we're proposing 3.54 meters with a minimum rear yard setback of 3.96 meters. We're also requesting a maximum platform encroachment, which is 1.5 meters, and we're proposing 3.54 meters, again with a minimum rear yard setback of 3.96 meters. Madam Chair, I would like to point out the following. It is my understanding that there is no objection from neighbors. It is also my understanding there is no objection from city staff. In my opinion, the proposed variants are minor in nature and meet the forward playing test. Thank you. I'd be pleased to answer any of your questions.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Marino at this time or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Ms. McRae, if there is no one that has called in for this application, we can move the matter into committee.
I do not see anyone with their hand raised, so I don't see any more callers.
Okay, Mr. Marino, you are satisfied with the conditions that town staff have recommended, and we can proceed to take the matter into committee at this time.
Yes, I am, Madam Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After listening to the presentation from the applicant this evening, as well as reviewing the town's written report, there are no public in opposition to this application, no written letter of support either. I am prepared to move that this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act with the following conditions. That the uncovered platform and fireplace be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated November 2020 and elevation drawings submitted with the application. And the second condition is our standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Okay. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Application CAV 015 of 2021 at 1348 Maple Ridge Crescent. Again, the application is CAV 015 of 2021 at 1348 Maple Ridge Crescent. If you are here to speak to the application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with a further instructions to join the video conferencing. Ms. McRae, I have the agent as Prem Tawari.
That is correct, and also the homeowners online, Assad and
Mr. and Mrs. Ansari.
Correct.
Yes, I see them now. You're here to attend, but Mr. Tawari will make the presentation. Is that correct? Okay. I see your head's shaking. You are muted, but thank you for that. Go ahead, Mr. Tawari. Do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you very much. This application is for a minor variance for only 26 square meter of addition to the existing house. I can introduce you. The owners are Dr. Zeba Ansari and Mr. Asad Ansari. Is the next slide, please? Dr. Ansari is Chief of Pediatrics at Oakville, Trafalgar Hospital and Georgetown Hospital. She works from home as well as from the hospital. Mr. Ansari is a compliance officer with an investment firm. He works from the home as well. Their daughter, Aisha Ansari, works at a senior position with Deloitte. She works from home as well. So there are 3 people who are working from home. Could I have next slide, please? The owners had no desire to extend the house originally, but they were enjoying the house as it is. However, the pandemic we are going through has forced all 3 to work from home. And their positions are such that they all need privacy when dealing with their patients and their clients. And the house design is not conducive to have private offices of three offices that will accommodate all of them at the same time. It had been very difficult for all 3 to work at the same time for the last 1 year. They tried to accommodate each other, but I think it wasn't really working out. So that's why they have decided to extend the house only by 26 square meters to create an office space. This is the most reasonable location and option to extend the house. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. Could I have the next slide, please?
Maybe staff is having, oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think we reviewed the staff report, and staff have talked about loss of rear yard amenity space and loss of privacy. The owners have sent in the photographs of the rear yard, which shows, I think the photographs are further down. If you want to maybe just project them, please. If you can go further down, there are photographs attached with the presentation. And that shows there's no loss of privacy, as the owners have installed 15 trees along the fence line, and they are mature enough to create the privacy. Could we just go further down, please? There are photographs attached with it. Further down, please. Yeah, you can see it's the view from inside. There are lots of trees, mature trees. They provide adequate privacy. If you go further down, there are about 4 or 5 photographs. You can look at all the trees they have been planted. Yeah, the next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, could we just go back to the previous slide, please? Right here, thank you. So there's no loss of privacy in the backyard, and the staff have also mentioned about the loss of rear yard amenity space. This lot is a pie-shaped lot, and the way the house is situated, it has created a lot bigger side yard, and in one of the corners there is extended rear yard compared to a normal house. If you could please project the site plan, please. It's just the last slide. I think there was another slide I had sent in with the site plan. I don't know if the committee members have the site plan with their presentation or not. I had sent in as a PDF.
There's a separate file just for the site plan for this application. It wasn't included in the presentation, so it should be there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you can see the side yard. The way the house is situated, it runs parallel to one of the side lot lines, and it creates a big backyard space in this corner. And with the small extension they are requesting for, there's only a small area here which doesn't comply with the setback requirements. And the side yard, the setback from this point to the side yard line is about 20 feet, and this is about 30 feet. So there's enough of side yard and rear yard amenity area that the homeowners can enjoy. And so, and if you can go back to the conclusion slide, please. I mean, if this was a regular rectangular lot, we could see there could have been some issue with the backyard amenity area reduction. But in the way the lot is situated, we have enough rear yard and there's enough privacy. So I think it does sort of alleviate those concerns, the staff's concern. So in our opinion, the request for minor variance meets the official plan. We are not changing the use, as well as the intent of the zoning bylaw. The proposal fits in with the characteristics of the neighborhood, and the request for the addition has arisen out of a necessity and not out of a sheer desire. They had no desire to just extend the house. It's just the need is there because of the pandemic. And I can maybe request the homeowners if they wish to add anything to it. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Tawari. Mr. and Mrs. Ansari, do you have anything further to add before we open the panel to the committee members to ask questions?
Thank you for the opportunity, but we're happy to answer questions.
That's very well. Very well. Any questions from committee members to Mr. and Mrs. Ansari or Mr. Tawari at this time? Okay, I see none. If you're satisfied with your comments, we will take the matter into committee and make a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken a site visit, reviewed the materials, including the applicant's presentation, which I found compelling in understanding the rear yard condition and the relationship of the existing addition and proposed addition to the rear property lines. I am satisfied that the requested variance would conform to the 4 tests of the Act, and I would put forward a motion of approval subject to 2 conditions. Those being that the addition be constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings revision B dated January 19th, 2021. And that the approval would expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no letters of objection received with respect to this matter.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. We appreciate that. And is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, all those opposed? Your application has been approved. 1 opposed.
Thank you, Madam, and thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right. Yes, you have to exit the meeting, and we will move to the next application. Thank you. All right, Ms. McCrae, are we ready to move to the next application?
Yes, we are. We have Mr. Capper for this application.
Okay, very well. Let me just read the application in. Application CAV 016 of 2021 at 182 Glen Ashton Drive. Again, the application is CAV 016 of 2021 at 182 Glen Ashton Drive. If you are interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. And staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions for the video conferencing. Good evening, Mr. Capper.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee and staff. Thank you for hearing me this evening. Madam Chair, just for the record, my name is David Capper. I'm a planning consultant with Glenn Schnarr & Associates in Mississauga. And our mailing address is 10 Kingsbridge Gardens Circle, Suite 700, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R3K6. Madam Chair, as you can see, I have prepared a presentation for this evening. I'm happy to walk through the presentation with you if there's a desire to do so. But the application before you this evening is for a single variance for an increase in the maximum permitted building height for an accessory structure. And why don't I just go through the presentation, if I could ask for the next slide. So the application is for the property that's located at 182 Glen Ashton Drive. And it's at the southwest corner of Glen Ashton and Caldwell Drive. And this is in the town's uptown core, generally located at Trafalgar and Dundas, and sort of the southwest quadrant of that intersection. This is a corner lot, And you can see that it does have a somewhat of an odd shape in that there's a very large daylight triangle that was secured at the point in time when the subdivision was done for this particular area. If I could get the next slide, please. Madam Chair, our clients did speak to their neighbors about the proposed variance, and they were able to receive 4 letters of support, which are highlighted in green, the green dots here. And those have been submitted to the committee for the record. If I could get the next slide, please. And Madam Chair, the zoning bylaw with respect to the Uptown Core has specific provisions that relate to the maximum height of accessory structures. And there are specific provisions that are further reduce the overall height of accessory structures on the basis of the lot depth. So in this particular instance for this lot, largely in response to the securing of that daylight triangle that I had showed you, it is a relatively awkward shaped lot. So that daylight triangle has the effect of reducing the overall depth of the lot. So the zoning bylaw has a maximum height provision of 3.5 meters when the lot depth is less than 29 meters. And the application before you this evening seeks an increase to 6.55 meters, where the lot depth is 26.8 meters. And the increase in building height for this accessory structure is intended to accommodate a second-story addition above the existing garage. And the intent is to have an accessory unit accommodated in the second story. And it is intended to provide an accessory dwelling unit for the homeowner's mother that is currently in a long-term care facility. And there is a strong desire to have them moved out of the long-term care facility and close to home. If I could get the next slide, please. So, Madam Chair, this is the site plan on the left-hand side, and you'll see that on the right-hand side I've sort of zoomed in to show you the location of what is essentially an attached garage, because this is a semi-detached dwelling. It's attached to the neighboring property to the west. If I could get the next slide. So on the left-hand side of the screen, Madam Chair, is the ground floor plan and the proposed second story. You'll notice that it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom accessory dwelling unit. And if I could get the next slide, I'll be able to show you the elevation. So not an overall increase in building height beyond what currently exists, but this is essentially the elevation that would be viewed if you were standing in the laneway looking at the detached the garage. Next slide, please. And this would be the view if you were standing, the elevation if you were standing at either the rear of the subject property or the neighboring property, looking towards the detached garage in the rear yard. And next slide, please. And finally, I believe this is my last slide. Sorry, there may be one more. This is the easterly elevation, which is the side of the structure that would be viewed along Coldwell Drive. I think I have one more slide showing, yes, the westerly elevation, which is essentially the view that the neighbor will see looking eastward towards the proposed second floor addition. Madam Chair, I believe that's all the slides that I have. I'm happy to entertain any questions should the chair or the committee members have any.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Mr. Capper. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Capper at this time? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Madam Chair, I have a question, actually, a technical question for town staff, please.
Go ahead.
Can you share with me the distinction between an accessory structure versus an accessory dwelling?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, 1 sec while I look up the definition would suffice, Member Murray?
Certainly, I'm trying to better understand these terms as to whether or not they're interchangeable. The variance is for an accessory dwelling, but I've heard it referred to as a structure as well. Also, I do have some questions for Mr. Capper, Madam Chair.
Yes.
At this time, while I appreciate the garage is attached to another garage, from a safety perspective, I understand that the family, would probably never leave the car in the garage underneath running. But that's not to say that the attached garage of the neighbor couldn't do the same. Are there safety precautions in place for carbon monoxide? I'm trying to understand if this was a detached garage. I would think that it would be easier for me to understand, but it's attached to another neighbor, and you can't control what another neighbor does.
Yes, certainly through you, Madam Chair, to Member Murray. There is a building permit required for this application if it is approved. I will not claim to be an expert in the building code, but there are specific requirements for the building code where you have, let's say, an attached garage that has a door that enters into the dwelling, into the main dwelling. There are requirements for having self-closing doors. So most of your entrances between a dwelling and a garage has a self-closing door. So it's usually a swing door, and that is a requirement of the building code. In addition to that, there's the requirement for vapor barrier installed as part of the building permit and the requirements of the building code. But I think most importantly, these two components of the building, so the garage and the dwelling unit above, function separately. So although it is attached, under the building code, they are viewed as the new second story would be reviewed as an addition to it. So it would be required to meet the building code requirements with respect to carbon monoxide detectors, obviously fire alarms. There has to be safe ingress and egress from the dwelling, all controlled under the building code requirements. So although they are two sort of distinct and separate, there's no connection between the two. They would have to be designed in order to comply with the building code requirements for things like carbon monoxide poisoning and contamination.
Thank you. Also, Madam Chair, one follow-up question for Mr. Capper. This individual, I'm assuming is elderly and to the best of my knowledge is living in a home. I found it astounding that senior will be asked to go up and down those stairs that we have been shown. Will there be additional variances needed to equip this apartment for a senior person?
Through you, Madam Chair, I've never met Craig's mother, but I understand from discussing the matter with Mariana, Craig's wife, that this is not your average 91-year-old that we're talking about. This is a very spry individual who I've been told will be running up and down the stairs. I don't, from my discussions with my client, I don't understand that there'll be an issue with respect to access to the stairs. It is entirely possible that if required, a stair lift could be provided, an exterior stair lift could be provided. That would not require any variances and would not have any, from a zoning bylaw perspective, would not have any implications as long as the stair lift is accommodated within the 36-inch wide exterior stairwells. So, as I understand it, it's not necessarily an issue with this individual, but in the event that it does become an issue, there is the possibility that a stair lift could be installed.
Any other questions or items of clarification?
Yeah, through Madam Chair, I can provide those definitions if they're still required, Member Murray, or?
Yeah, just as a learning exercise, please, and thank you.
Yeah, so under Part 3, the definitions in the zoning bylaw, an accessory building or structure is defined as means a building or structure used for an accessory purpose, including a detached private garage that is A, located on the same lot as the primary use building or structure, and B, is not used for human habitation or an occupation for gain or profit unless otherwise permitted in this bylaw. And under section 4.1 in the Uptown Core, noting that this is a corner lot, it would be permitted. And I believe you wanted to know the definition of accessory dwelling as well.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yes, thank you.
So again, under Part 3 definitions, accessory dwelling means a second dwelling unit subordinate to the main dwelling unit on a lot.
So an accessory structure that's typical like a garage can have a dwelling unit attached to it, but when you refer to an accessory dwelling, it's simply an accessory dwelling without any other amenities.
Yeah, through Madam Chair, contained on the lot.
Okay, thank
Madam
you for
Chair,
that distinction.
Madam Chair, if I may, just a quick point of clarification. My use of the terms accessory dwelling and accessory structure is largely a tense issue. As it stands right now, the detached from the main dwelling garage is an accessory structure, but the addition in the future, the addition of the second story will make it an accessory dwelling. So perhaps my nomenclature was a little bit may have I don't want to say misled in a pejorative sense, but it was a very specific attempt to describe the existing building as an accessory structure, and then when the additional unit is added on the second floor, it will then become an accessory dwelling. So my apologies if that confused matters.
Thank you for that clarification. Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Thank you. One more follow-up. So just to clarify with town staff then, through you, Madam Chair, it is because this is a corner unit that they are able to convert the accessory structure to an accessory dwelling.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So under Part 4 of the zoning bylaw, section 411C states that notwithstanding subsection B above, which is, I'll read out B, an accessory dwelling is only permitted within a detached dwelling and a semi-detached dwelling. And if you go down to C, C states, notwithstanding subsection B above, an accessory dwelling is permitted within an accessory building on a corner lot in the residential Uptown Core RUC zone. And this is in the RUC zone, and it is a corner lot.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any further questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Mr. Capper, if you're satisfied with the conditions that town staff have recommended, we are able to move the matter into committee.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have consulted with my client in that regard, and they are amenable to the conditions that are proposed.
Okay, who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town staff's written report, which I note that staff is in support of, and having taken into consideration the comments presented by Mr. Capper this evening, noting that there were 5 written submissions in support of the variance for this particular project to move forward, I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to make a motion to support the minor variance subject to the following conditions, which is that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings number 1 dated November 2020, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Thank you.
Okay, is there any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. Application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.
You too. Okay, application CAV 017 of 2021 at Ulrich Crescent, 320 Ulrich Crescent. Again, the application number is CAV 017 of 2021 at 320 Ulrich Crescent. Ms. McRae, are we ready to move on to the next application?
Yes, we are, and I do have Tricia Briers and Christian Fortune that are moved in as panelists for this application.
Hold on one second. Okay. Christian Fortune is the owner?
No, I'm the owner, Madam Chair.
Okay, Ms. Briers, you'll be speaking to the application. Who is Mr. Fortune? Are you here to speak to the application?
I'm here to support Tricia if need be.
Okay, very well. You let us know if you will address the committee, then we will take your information at that time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Briers.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, and town staff, thank you for having me this evening. Just to give some full transparency, I wanted to give some details regarding my application for minor variance. And before I start, just a note in advance, I received an email today that my sign wasn't adequately placed, and I just wanted to confirm to everybody that that was moved tonight to down by the sidewalk. So I apologize for my oversight on that. I just wanted to clarify. So just some history on this particular project. It is regarding the accessory structure in the back of my property, which you'll see there on the screen. It is a shed in the backyard. My ex-husband took it upon himself to repair the roof that was caving in on that shed. In good faith, I trusted that he was doing that construction according to the bylaws because he certainly is familiar with the town requirements. That unfortunately did not happen, which I was not aware of. After he had constructed the building, it was the roof part, we did split before the project was 100% complete, and he moved out. My role in this was I finished the cladding on the outside, which was the stucco for the shed that was rebuilt. And when he rebuilt it with the roof caving in, he did add height to it. So full disclosure, and that's why we're here today. So once I finished the stucco, like within a week, the bylaw officer came by and I was made aware of the situation that I'm in now. So the top portion of the shed with the extra height was crafted with the sole idea of having our daughter in mind. Up above the shed in that sort of void is what we call her playhouse. It's simply got some beanbag chairs and a chalkboard in it. It's just strictly a kid's place to hang out. For her, it's an important haven for her time from spring to fall, and she was in it, as a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago. She really enjoys having that space, and it's really her haven. It would quite frankly be devastating to reduce the height of the structure, and we're over variance by, I believe it's 8 inches, because that would really prohibit her from having that comfortable height for that play space that she certainly loves to use. So some backstory on my daughter: she is an adopted only child in our family. She has ADHD and a learning disability. So this past year has been rather difficult for her. She has gone from learning that we've split to COVID hitting to her dad moving out. And now obviously the issues with the shed, she's certainly aware that I have to go through this to see what we can do to leave it as it was constructed. And with her with her learning disability, I beg your pardon, she actually moved schools in September. So there's just been a lot that's happened for this poor young girl who's 11 years old in the past year. So this is something that's really meaningful to her because it's something that's very unique to her and our household. So we certainly appreciate your consideration. As a single mother now, the cost to finish this shed cladding and then this whole bylaw process and committee of adjustments is rather cost prohibitive, being a single mother. So, the additional changes to the shed would continue to be a struggle for me as a single mother. And the only reason I've come this far with it and continue to sort of, try to do this is solely for her. So I just wanted to clarify that. I purchased the house with my ex a little over 8 years ago, and the footprint of the shed in which you are seeing right now on the plan, it has not changed. It never has changed. The footprint, oh, you guys don't call it the footprint, sorry, the lot coverage of the accessory building has not changed. Google Earth or Oakville Maps, which dates back to 2002, will show that same footprint or lot coverage as you refer to it, and it will support the claim that we didn't add to it by any means. We simply fixed the roof that was caving in and added some height to it. So that for the lot coverage, although it was unsupported in the documentation, hopefully by reviewing those Oakville maps and the Google Earth will support the claim that we didn't change that, and it has been that way for 2 decades. Final comment from myself. I've had 11 neighbors provide support for this claim, 2 of which are direct adjacent neighbors to my property, one to the west and one to the south. And as of receiving this notification, there were no opposition letters received at that point. So, Madam Chair, committee members in town, open to any questions you might have.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Ms. Briers. Would anyone like to ask Ms. Briers any questions at this time or items of clarification? Okay, Ms. Murray.
Through you, Madam Chair, question of clarification for town staff. Town, again, for my education, under variance 1, accessory building lot coverage, in your notes, towards the bottom of the paragraph, it says staff are of the opinion that a building built in compliance with the bylaw would create similar as of right impacts, and therefore the existing additional lot coverage exacerbates said impacts. Could you elaborate? Could you explain that for me, please, and thank you?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Understanding what the bylaw permits, when the application was being reviewed by staff, going back to the point, I guess, of the cumulative impacts of the lot coverage and the height, that's where anything beyond what the bylaw permits, when you actually visibly view the structure, it is somewhat of an anomaly in terms of its size and use on the property. So that's where the comments were coming from in terms of the request for additional relief above and beyond what the bylaw permits.
One follow-up, Madam Chair, through you to town staff. Based on the comments received by our presenter and applicant this evening, would this structure precede any bylaw with regards to this structure? Is there any grandfathering ability or possibility? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's difficult for me to say. Unfortunately, I didn't have that depth of conversation with building services staff. My understanding was, notwithstanding that it may have been there, dating back to 2002, there wasn't a permit issued for the accessory building. So I don't believe there would be any legal non-conforming status from my understanding through the discussions I had with internal staff.
Thank you.
Any further questions or items of clarification? Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for town staff as well. Mr. Hassan, I'm having some difficulty understanding staff's opposition to this application. The word anomaly shows up several times. You've said it again tonight. I'm looking at an air photo of this neighborhood, and a large accessory structure or detached garage in the rear yard seems to be the rule in this neighborhood, not the exception. And several of the accessory structures look significantly larger footprint than this one. And so given that staff's in support of the reduction of the side yard variance, the applicant's statement that the footprint hasn't changed, so the coverage variance represents an existing condition. So it would appear the only issue here is an additional approximately 6 inches of height. And I'd like to understand how staff feel that variance is causing an impact, both on the structure itself, plus given the predominance of these accessory buildings in the neighborhood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, staff do appreciate the comments from the applicant. Unfortunately, traditionally when applications are submitted, there's some dialogue that's had between myself and the applicants to understand what the application entails. But in this situation, I wasn't aware that the lot coverage was existing. So the comments were prepared as if the structure was being built new. And that's where we were coming from in terms of the additional lot coverage and height requests cumulatively.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, I see none. We do note all the letters of support that you have, Ms. Byers. I don't think there's anyone here from the public that is called in to address this application. Is that correct, Ms. McRae?
That is correct.
Okay, very well. Then we are ready to take the matter into committee if you're satisfied with, yes, go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
I was just going to be willing to make a motion. I thought you were calling for a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I think you've heard my comments by way of question to staff. Madam Chair, I'm satisfied that this application meets the test of the Planning Act. I do not see any impact being caused by the application in front of us. I would also note that 11 letters of support from the neighborhood, including some of the adjacent properties. Madam Chair, I'm going to move this application be approved as applied for, and that the approval be subject to, I guess it's an existing situation, so it doesn't need to be in accordance, but that I'll say that the accessory building remain in accordance with the drawings submitted to the committee dated October 15th, 2020. And it doesn't need a second condition with respect to a building permit or completing anything, as no work's being proposed.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Trowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Ms. McRae, let me know when we're ready to move on to the next application.
Yes.
This is application CAV 018 of 2021 at 152 West Side Drive. Again, the application number is CAV 018 of 2021 at 152 West Side Drive. If you would like to speak to this application, the number to call is 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff is standing by and they will be providing you with further instructions to join the video conferencing.
Okay, and I have moved the applicant's agent and homeowner are moved into panelists.
Okay, very well. I see Mr. Angeliki.
Yes.
Am I saying this right?
Yes.
And Mr. Ziai? You're muted.
Sorry, Ziai.
Ziai, okay. Good evening. So, Mr. Ziai, you're not presenting. It's Mr. Angeliki. You're just here for support?
Correct.
Very well. Go ahead, Mr. Angeliki. This is your time.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Thank you for having us. If I could just take a little, bring to light here a little piece from the planning staff's notes. It says here that the proposed dwelling is not compatible with that of the existing and newly constructed dwellings in this residential area. It is the staff's opinion that the increased residential floor area introduces negative massing and scale impacts onto the abutting dwellings in this area. I read that and I kindly disagree. If we can look here at the slides, if we can go to slide 2, you will see here on West Side Drive, on the south side of the street, which is our side here, right? We don't have it listed though, but 120 West Side Drive, 134 West Side Drive, 158 West Side Drive, and 162 West Side Drive, and 164 West Side Drive are all homes that are similar in scale and massing, right? Further kind of wondering exactly what planning staff was looking at is if you look at 152 West Side Drive, where we're located, 2 doors down, there's 3 homes right in a row that are similar in scale as to what we're proposing, right? If we could go to the next slide, you'll see here, we have outlined their lot coverage and their floor areas, right? All are similar to what we're proposing with the exception of 158, which is closer to 60%, right? If I can go back to that planning staff here, right? One thing that I have a little bit of difficulty with is the word compatible, right? Compatible is a pretty big word in this context because any home that is larger than 1,500 square feet, 2 bedrooms will not be compatible. I don't think this really reflects the building trends of what is happening in this area, right? Building these homes is a significant financial commitment and burden, right? And in the 10 years or so that I've been designing homes in Oakville, I have never been approached to design a home that is 2 bedrooms and 1,500 square feet, right? I don't think this really reflects the building trends or the bylaw takes into account the building trends of what's happening in this area today, right? These lots are too expensive to build a home too small. Okay. Any questions?
Are you done, Mr. Angeliki?
Yeah, unless there's
so Len, maybe we can go and present the details of each house as well.
Yeah.
Further in the slides, if we have a little bit more time.
Sure. Yeah, you still have some time.
Okay. You want to keep going?
You go for it, Sam.
Oh, I don't know how to control this. So these are just some more examples of some of the. This is the property adjacent to the property that I would like to build, and it's probably the largest house on the street at approximately 2,800 square feet, compared to the 2,537 that I'm proposing. And if we continue, the second 134 West Side Drive is 2,562 square feet. These are all the newly built houses on the street since 2009. There's been nothing built since then, less than 2,450 square feet approximately. And my proposal is roughly around the same size, maybe a few square foot bigger, but definitely not the biggest house on the street by any means. In terms of lot coverage, our variance was supported, and I'd like to draw your attention to one comment in the staff report specifically that says the intent of regulating lot coverage is to prevent the construction of a dwelling that has a mass and scale that appears larger than dwellings in the surrounding neighborhood. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed lot coverage would not have a negative impact on the adjacent properties or the surrounding area. So saying that if the intent of lot coverage is to prevent the dwelling that has a mass and scale that's larger, how can the first variance be rejected on the same basis? Because the basis for that rejection is that the scale would be substantially larger than the existing dwellings in the immediate vicinity. So to me, that seems a little bit contradictory.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ziai. If you're satisfied, we can take questions at this time. Members, are there any questions of the gentleman, items of clarification at this time? Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're requesting a house that's approximately 500 square feet larger than what's allowed in the bylaw. And with that, it's my belief it comes with an onus for you to try to mitigate any impact. And the fact that you're 500 square feet larger in itself is not necessarily, the issue. But my question is, and I know you're permitted the front yard setback that you're proposing, but you're asking for a much larger house, and you're proposing to site it in such a way that it's going to be the furthest forward of all the houses in the vicinity. And I think you referenced in your presentation the 3 houses to the west, all of which are lined up and further back than what you're proposing. So I'd like to understand your thought process as to why you haven't chosen to try to mitigate the impact of a larger house by moving it back more so in line with the other new houses, as opposed to bringing the house forward from what exists today.
My client would, we aligned it with what we're by law allowed to extend as far forward as possible, right? The existing home sets the setback minus a meter, right? So that's how we aligned it. This was done to maximize the rear lot or the rear backyard area to also include a pool, right? Part of that is we went through the process of having a civil engineer design an infiltration pit, right? So that we are managing stormwater correctly, right? So we have that to work with, combined with, you know, still having a functional backyard. That's
and further to that, there was no, I mean, I would be open to setting it further back. You know, obviously it maximizes the rear space, but it wasn't intentional to put it so far forward. That wasn't a point of contention for me.
Thank you.
Any further questions or items of clarification? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Could I ask the our architect to show the chart of other buildings on the street that have had similar requests?
I think town staff has that one, right?
Right.
The yellow sheet with the comparison.
Yes.
That one, correct?
Yes.
And I recall over time that we've had a number of applications come in on this street. And I note that these, with the exception of 164 West Side, date well back, almost 10 years for most of them. Did you look at, I know there have been some recent applications on this street. Did you pull those up and evaluate what was requested and received for other more recent development on this street?
We focus our attention on what's already been constructed and what will actually have what it actually affects the streetscape.
And sorry, to just interject, I couldn't find any more recent applications, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I went through the entire database trying to find applications on West Side, and I couldn't find any.
Yeah, I recall that there was one up.
Was it 120?
Yeah, I think it was 120.
Yeah, 120's in there. But I just didn't have the totals.
I don't see it here.
I can actually speak to 120 since I designed it.
Mr. Hassan, can you pull up 120 West Side Drive?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just one second, I'll try and dig it out and that pace.
And then maybe you can also comment as to whether there are other applications on West Side that can be compared.
Yeah, and while staff is looking at that information, I recall that there was somewhat of a shift in approach to looking at variances dating back to, I believe it was around 2014, 2015, where there was a recalibration, if you will, in terms of the tolerance for RFA that would be accepted. And I'd like to relate this or understand this better temporally relative to that calibration in staff evaluation and approach. And perhaps Mr. Hassan can speak to that a little bit when he's got a moment.
In the meantime, let me ask Ms. McRae, we have letters of opposition on record. Have any of these people registered to speak to this matter in front of the committee?
No, they have not.
Ms. McRae?
No, they have not. No, they have not.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, one of the letters wasn't necessarily a letter of opposition. It was more a question as to regarding the height of the building, which is 8.5 meters, which is half a meter below the acceptable height for homes in this area. Well, for most of Oakville, for that matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Angelique, for your clarification. Go ahead, Mr. Hassan. Sorry, I did not see you there.
No problem, Madam Chair. So I dug into our digital database, and for 120 West Side Drive, that came to the committee, and my screen's frozen. But that was in 2018. That was CAB A013 of 2018, and that was approved for a residential floor area of 46.7%, whereas 43% is permitted. So in this situation, for this proposal, 43% is permitted and 52.88% is proposed. And then going back to Member Hardcastle's questions regarding the statistics and data tracking that staff used to assess variances, 164 was in 2015, 158 was in 2011, and then 152, which is forward. There's apparently a historical variance on 152 in 1992, but I don't seem to see a variance for the property at 162. But Member Hardcastle's comments are correct. I joined the town in 2018, and my understanding was back in 2016, there was a shift in approach in understanding what the bylaw permits in stable residential areas, and furthermore to that, what was being requested in terms of residential floor area, height, and lot coverage, which are the main provisions in the bylaw that control the mass and scale of new dwellings in relation to existing homes in stable residential areas.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Mr. Hardcastle, does that answer your question, or would you like a follow-up?
It does answer my question, but I do have a follow-up.
Go ahead.
On the basis of that recalibration, that is largely the basis that's informing your position here now, in terms of not conforming to the general intent of the OP and the zoning.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that'd be correct. And then furthermore, it is understood and it was observed through site visits and through internal discussions that there are new homes that were built in the area. The three that were referenced earlier on the overhead mapping are side by each. In this situation, this newly proposed home is side by side, two single story, 1.5 story dwellings. So within the official plan, there's policies that speak to a transition of height and stepping back of second floor areas when there's a transition of built form. So again, that's where, in relation to the additional residential floor areas being requested, that's where the comments were coming from. And in relation to the comments for the lot coverage, the continuation of the comments that were read were that since the front covered porch constitutes additional lot coverage, being a one-story element from a massing perspective, staff didn't see a major issue with that, noting that from a building element perspective, front covered porches are found within newly existing and existing homes, newly built and existing homes in the area.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Angelique.
Yeah. May I speak to 120 West Side Drive? It's just, since I actually designed that home, like the massing and the scale from the exterior is almost identical to what we're proposing at 152. The biggest difference with 120 is that there is an open to below, right? So basically from, I would say, 1/3 of the main floor is 2 stories in space, is 2 stories in height. That's what's reducing the floor area. It's not necessarily the exterior massing of the dwelling, right? From an exterior perspective and a streetscape perspective, it's almost identical to what we're proposing at 152.
Okay. Did you send in the elevations for your proposal for 152 today?
I did not. I
think they were part of the drawing, sorry.
Yep.
As part of the drawings, I think there were elevations included.
No, oh,
Yes,
sorry, 152 or 120, sorry.
No, for 152.
Yeah, they're, yes.
Are they part of your presentation? Because I'd like to pull those up.
They are part of the application. They're not part of the presentation.
Okay, then I can pull them up on my computer. I just wanted to see them on the larger screen. Okay, are there any further questions or items of clarification at this time? Okay, I see none. If we're satisfied, we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to, before I do that, Ms. McRae, I think I already asked you if there's anyone here who's interested in speaking to this application.
No, there is not.
Okay. Mr. Ziai and Mr. Angeliki, I just want you to also note that your sign is in your front window at the present time. Now, while we understand that there's a lot of issues with winter weather and all of that, it really should be at the curb so that any passersby can read it and find the information accessible without having to trespass onto the property. So if I could draw your attention to that.
We will have that fixed.
Okay.
Yep.
Who would like to move a motion and start the ball rolling? Mr. Tulowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I really want to support this application. I can't in its present form. I don't believe the design or even the size of the house is the issue here. I think it's very consistent and compatible with the other houses that have been built in this neighborhood. My issue is the siting of the dwelling. I think by it being that far forward, that much bigger, it's going to have an impact. So, Madam Chair, I've read the comments from the neighborhood. I think one describes it as a monster house. This clearly is not a monster house. The other neighbor is concerned about grading, and as the committee is well aware, we have to leave that to the Development Services site plan process. Now, I'm trying to try this motion and see what my colleagues think. I'm trying to recommend the application be approved, finding that it meets the test of the Planning Act, but I would make that approval subject to putting my faith in the acting director of planning, and that the site plan and elevations be to the satisfaction of the acting director of planning, with specific guidance with respect to the potential resiting of the dwelling further back on the lot to bring it more in line with the other new builds in the immediate vicinity.
Okay, any discussion on this recommendation? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some reservations with respect to the motion that's on the floor and the proposal in general. I think that the two pieces that while I share Mr. Tulowski's concern with respect to the siting of the building, given the size and the architectural design, I believe that the greater efforts could be undertaken to design a building that pulls away from the side property boundaries, particularly given the relationship to existing single-story buildings on either side. And I think something that is more in keeping with recalibrated assessments with respect to acceptable massing and residential floor area would be preferred. So on that basis, I will not be supporting the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there further discussion? Mr. Zia, I do see your hand. Unfortunately, once we are in, we've taken the matter into committee, there's no further comments from the applicant or agent. So this is our time to deliberate and provide you with a decision. So, sorry. Yes, Mr. Flemington, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I just want to state that, you know, from the presentation this evening, there were some concerns that I shared that Member Tilowski has articulated. And as well, you know, I did hear during the presentation that the applicant, you know, did motion that, you know, they were okay with reciting the building, you know, a little more to the rear. So, you know, I am not on the same page with Member Hardcastle. I do think just as far as the motion that is on the table, that I am in favor of that motion as presented. Just because I think that if we do give that direction to the other director, that, you know, something could be immediately done with regards to approving this application as applied for with that one direction. So I am in favor of the motion.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Mr. Flemington, and given that this is probably going to be an ongoing thing with West Side Drive, particularly with all of the new development that's on it. It will be prudent to proceed in that manner. Any further discussions? Okay, so the motion is to approve the application. Mr. Towski, I did not write it down, so do you want to take another dab at it so that town staff can note it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's simply to approve the application as applied for with the variances with the conditions that, well, the standard condition of building permit issue within 2 years, but that the development proceed in accordance with site plan and elevation to the satisfaction of the acting director of planning, with committee guidance to the director to look at the reciting of the building more in line with the new builds in the immediate vicinity.
Very well. I think I've got most of it. And if town staff has any questions, they can ask while they're drafting that. So the motion is to approve the application as applied for with the standard conditions that development will not, 2 years from the date of the decision of the building permit has not been issued or proposed construction proceeding and building permit is, sorry, I lost my writing. Proposed construction and that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed, with subject to the approval to the acting director of the Department of Planning, with guidance from the committee that the building is to be moved more in line with the buildings in the immediate vicinity. All those in support of this recommendation? Okay. All those opposed? Okay. So your application has been approved, 2 opposed.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Ms. Murray, sorry, Ms. McCrae, are we ready to move on to the next application?
It'll just be a moment while I move them into panel. Just one moment.
Okay, let me know when you're ready. I'll just read the application number into record and provide the people with direction if they're watching the Oakville.ca website. Application CAV 019 of 2021 at 222 Burgundy Drive. Again, the application is CAV 019 of 2021 at 222 Burgundy Drive. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing.
Okay, we're ready to move ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I have Mr. Cochran here. I can see him. If there's anyone who'd like to speak to this application, please raise your hand and we will bring you up towards the panel. Mr. Cochran, go ahead. You have a presentation for us with respect to your 1.5-story dwelling.
Actually, Madam Chairman and members of the committee and staff, thank you for taking this evening. I don't think I have anything to add to the slides that have presented the site plan and the designs for this. I am acting as an agent for the owner, Mr. Cahill, who we did a renovation for about 12 years ago, and he moved off from Canada with an international job and wants to relocate back to Oakville with his new fiance, even though it was referred to as bride-to-be. I think, is fiance okay to say these days?
I suppose, yes.
So what I do know that the owners have not been able to visit with the architect directly. They did meet these via Zoom meetings. I do know that they went through many redraws on this to try and accommodate all the particular needs of the participants, both Mr. Cahill and his fiance. Both of them have families that they want to use the building for to have family outings and have guests over. So a lot of attempts were done by the designer, HAM Designs, to make it conform to bylaws, and I was asked to consult on many different options and things that might help, might assist. So this final draft was not arrived at through a quick run through. It was arrived through a lot of work and efforts by the owners and the designer to get this final plan and site plan for you. So if anybody's got any questions, I'll try my best to answer.
Just for the interest of the public and given our circumstances, if you have further drawings that you were submitted to go through, I would suggest that we show them at least. We do have your submission, and we do have the report from town staff with respect to your residential floor area and lot coverage variances, as well as the front yard setback. But I would like at least to show what you've provided so that the public has a chance to see it. Very well, those are all the elevations. If there's anything you'd like to speak to while the actual
Not sure. I think I can add very much to what's already been stated in the designer's narrative there, or to the design floor plans. I know we did address the height, and there's a flat top at the top of it, so we were able to bring it down to conform to building height. We had test pits done. There was water table issues, so we had to raise it up about 0.15 meter to bring it up out of the stable water table. I know that there is a front yard setback due to that porch and the posts on the porch. There is preliminary landscape designs being done for the rear yard, so there was really not a lot of space to push the house back to reduce that or increase that front yard setback to accommodate that variance. There was a potential other variance for the circular driveway due to the width in between the two arms, but the landscape architect was notified Friday, and he came back Saturday and said that he could conform to that. So that was a non-issue, and that's why we did not go to deferral on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your submission. Are there any questions of Mr. Cochrane at this time? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Not so much clarification of town staff with regards to the circular driveway. That's permitted in this RL10 zone.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, it would be permitted. However, as noted in the staff comments, the separation between the two entrances that form the circular driveway needs to be at least 15 meters apart. I haven't seen a plan that demonstrates otherwise, but if the applicant is able to show that on a site plan submitted, if this application is approved through the building permit process, then it would be in compliance and be permitted.
So technically we could approve with the variances and the site plan would take care of the driveway.
Yeah, that would be correct, your Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Very well. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noted, this is a question first for Mr. Cochrane. I noted in my site visit and in looking at the site plan drawing that there are a number of trees along the side of the driveway that will be removed as a part of the construction. I also noted that there was one tree at the that would be impacted by the circular driveway, or sorry, my apologies, two trees that are located in the front yard adjacent to the existing driveway and where the circular driveway would surround around there. Have you undertaken an arborist evaluation on the impacts on that tree?
We did meet on site with the arborist. We walked the property, and we looked at all the trees that are going to be potentially impacted by the building. The owner has given us instructions to keep as many trees as they can. I think there's 25 on the lot. I understood there was one tree by the garage that had to come down because it was too close. The arborists are currently working on the the landscape architect is working on a landscape plan that we should have sometime next week. He is aware of the owner's wishes to maintain as many of the trees as we can. We did a little bit of dead wooding in there already. There were some dangerous limbs that were way up high at almost the street line, so we cleaned those things out. We will have an arborist report to go with the landscaping plan, and I assume that we would deal with that at the DESP. Is that correct, Brandon? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You picked up my follow-up. Thank you.
Very well. Any other questions or items of clarification? Go ahead, Mr. Brandon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a point of clarification, and I guess there's a correction. If this application is to be approved, the date should be January 25th, 2021. The date noted, July 8th, 2019, is incorrect.
It should be January
25th, 2021. It appears from the revision table.
Okay, I've noted it. Thank you. Any further questions or items of clarification before we take the matter into committee? Okay, Who would like to move a motion? Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town staff report, which I note is in support of the variances, having also taken into account the presentation by the agent this evening. Thank you for that. And noting that there are no written or oral objections at this time by the neighbors or any member of the public. Just wondering, there wasn't anybody to speak to this, was there, Madam Chair?
No, we did not have any call-ins, and there were no panelists registered.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests, and I am prepared to make a motion to approve the application for the variances, for the 3 variances, subject to the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings, plot date January 25th, 2021, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit is not issued. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. And your application has been approved, none opposed.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
Ms. McCrae, let me know when you're ready to move on to the next application.
Yes, I will. Okay, we're all set.
Okay, very well. We are looking at application CAP 087 of 2020 at 1035 Pine Grove Road. This was deferred from October 13th of 2020. Again, application CAV 087 of 2020 at 1035 Pine Grove Road, deferred from October 13th of 2020. If you'd like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instruction to join the video conferencing. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Van Heuven.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Curtis Van Keulen, Hughes Design Studio. My address is 1A Conestoga Drive, Unit 300, Brampton, Ontario. I'm speaking before you today in support of application for a new 2-story dwelling at the address noted in front of you. We have, as noted, been to the committee before and deferred based on comments from staff, and we made an effort to reduce the impact of the 2nd story of the new dwelling on the neighbors. We did pull down the RFA considerably. We went from 299, almost 300 square feet down to 192. So we pulled back that considerably. We redesigned the front elevation quite a bit to mitigate the impact of the 2nd story visually to the streetscape, covering up a lot of it with some gables and some nice roof designs just to pull it in more of a bungalow loft type style. We do know that the building trends in the area are such that, you know, these larger 2-story dwellings are coming up a lot more often. We have 4 right across the street on Maplehurst and Pine Grove that are all new 2-story, very large homes. There are also about 4 down Pine Grove at about 231 down to 1265. So there's a number down there that are in similar fashion with this design as well. It is in keeping with the new building trends in the area. Just to reiterate, we're looking for about 2.5 RFA, 2.5% RFA over. We do note staff objections, and we have made a lot of effort to curtail the impact of the 2nd story in relation to the neighboring properties. The massing on the second floor was really tricky due to the family's needs. The layout on the second floor is such that even with reductions, we had to keep it the same. We did make a lot of effort to reduce the open to above area, which staff report points to as, seemingly adding a lot more RFA than what it obviously it isn't, because it's open to above, but we really pulled down the RFA quite a bit. And on the third page, if you want to go, just jump down to the third page, fourth page. My apologies there. So we really pulled that eave down quite a bit from the rest of the second story to sort of mitigate and negate the concerns of that open to above area. So we're really playing with the massing there, and you can see that quite obviously on the second elevation, which is the next page down. There's another side elevation there to really show the massing on that as well. On the other side too, we wrapped around the gable eave return, similar to what you see in front of you there. I do want to point out on the first slide, there's a map of neighbors that we approached, all on the east side of the property. All three unanimously supported the application. They all are very accepting of the application. We've got 5 that have signed the letter on page or slide 2 of my presentation. So 5 neighbors have signed there. And then recently, just this afternoon, we received 2 more from across the street. Numbers 1029 and 1034 Pine Grove. Peter Fernandez and Landy Bertka, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. They also signed in support. So we have a total of 7 neighbors supporting this application. We've located the house on the site plan. It's not on the slide, but it is provided in the application documents. We've located the house in line with the neighbors. We have not tried to push it forward at all. We try to mitigate our impact on the surrounding area as much as we can. And overall, like I said, we really worked hard to mitigate the exterior massing to really curtail it and bring it down in the past number of months and come back before you today with substantially reduced RFA. Again, we're only looking for 192 square feet. And we believe that it does meet the 4 tests. And I submit this now to you and the committee for your questions and concerns.
Mr. Van Keulen, while I appreciate all the work that you've done with town staff and I understand that it's only almost 193 square feet, but town staff makes reference to your open to below space that can be filled in at a later date. Like, what are your comments to that? And
I'm a little puzzled at this. For one, you would need a building permit to do anything remotely similar to this. So, suggesting that people will essentially break the law in the future is really tricky. So I don't really agree with the statement. But also we made effort, and if you go back to the slide, you can see the elevations where we really pulled down that open to above space. So the ceiling height in there would be, if I were to do the math on that, you would probably only have a 7-foot ceiling height in that area if you even tried to build a floor over that open to above space. So we reduced the ceiling height and we reduced the eave in that area so that obviously we would pull away from that concern and not obviously not have that concern in the future. The intent is to have this dramatic great room. The family really likes the design to have an open area, and there's no wish to somehow create some kind of room up there. The staircase is also located in that area, and it's done so in such a way to create a really nice dramatic scene when you're sitting in the great room and you look up. And I neglected to draw attention to the photos and the slides that I did provide. If you wanted to bring that back up, on page 3, I think it was, there was a couple photos of the dramatic great room that the client is really trying to achieve. So yeah, diminishing the central key room in the house where the family will congregate by putting a floor across, breaking the law to do so. I can't really speak to that, but you know, we did bring down the eave height and the massing, and the ceiling height, like I said, would be not conducive to a room in that area at all.
Okay. Any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Van Keulen? Okay, I see none. If we're satisfied, we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to, hold on, before I do that, I do recognize that we do have letters of support. Ms. McCrae, has anyone called in to speak to this application?
There are no callers.
Okay, very well. So then we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I believe the only thing the applicant did wrong in coming back to the committee this time was not to provide a 3D rendering of the house. I think the front elevation paints a very negative picture, and I think that's reflected in the staff report. But in following the applicant's presentation through the various elevations, you get a better picture of what the proposal is. There is quite a bit of relief built into the design that does not show very well based on the drawings that were provided to the committee. But, there is quite a bit of relief put into this and the revisions. I also note the applicant's effort to reduce the eaves to not have consistent second floor, and in so doing, I think answer the question posed earlier, what happens if you try to fill that in later? It sounds like there's really not the height to do that. So Madam Chair, I'm satisfied with the efforts made by the applicant to reduce it to less than 200 square foot variance that they're looking for. I believe the effort put into the design does go a long way to mitigate that 200 square feet. And the applicants also got support of a significant amount of the community. Madam Chair, I'm going to move the application be approved as applied for, making that approval subject to all proceeding in general accordance with site plan and elevations. I'm going to say as provided to the committee. Not sure what those dates are, and that building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Tulowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. Ms. Murray, did you have something to say?
Yeah, quick question. To add to the motion, could the applicant please give the date of the drawings for Mr. Tulowski?
Excuse me for a minute while I pull that up. January 18th, 2021.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All those in support? Okay. Your application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Have a good night. Thank you.
Have a good night. We have meetings for February the 2nd to confirm. who would like to move those meetings? Ms. Murray, thank you. And a motion to adjourn. Ms. Murray, thank you. We are adjourned at 9:05.